Morning, everyone. We're convening the Committee on Labor and Government Operations. It is December 5th, Tuesday at 10 a.m. in conference room 309. This is an informational briefing to discuss the issue that has come up about denied pending investigation. I have to be honest, I was a little surprised as I learned more in my start as labor chair to discover that this issue existed. Just to give the public a little bit of background, when a workers' comp claim is filed, it's either approved, denied, or denied pending investigation. And denied pending investigation provides kind of a weird gray area where the injured worker is not covered by work comp until the investigation is concluded. And we have a law in the books that requires. Oh, Frank, mute yourself. Thanks, Frank. Hey, Frank, you're not on mute.
Oh,
Can you mute him?
can you hear me?
Tech, can you mute him, please? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Anyway, when a claim is denied pending investigation, the injured worker is not covered by work comp and is at times not covered by private insurance, depending on the private insurance's interpretation of what denied pending investigation means. Now, we have laws on the books requiring private insurance to take over once a claim is denied. And there seems to be a discrepancy in the industry right now on whether denied pending investigation is a true denial or not. So we're first going to hear from the state. We hear from the Disabilities Compensation Division on their opinion of it, what the effect has been. I'd then like to hear from certain providers out there on the effect that this interpretation has had on their patients. And then we're going to move on to the insurance companies themselves and to hear from various insurance companies around the state on how they're interpreting it and get their feedback on this issue. So first, if you don't mind, Disabilities Compensation Division. Thank you for being here, Joanne.
Aloha and good morning, Chair Matayoshi. Joanne Videnhar, Administrator for the Department of Labor's Disability Compensation Division. So our responsibilities include regulatory oversight for workers' compensation, temporary disability, and prepaid health care, as you stated. Thank you for involving us on this very important topic. So the department is concerned that Hawaii's injured workers are not receiving medical care in a timely manner, especially from the outset. In 1974, the Hawaii's Prepaid Health Care Act was enacted, the first in the nation to set a minimum standard of health care coverage for workers. This long-standing law mandates Hawaii employers to provide health care coverage for their employees, ensuring medical care no matter the circumstance. When a worker, as you described, is injured in Hawaii, the employer is required to file a report of injury with the department within 7 days of the injury. Failure to report is a misdemeanor, punishable up to a $5,000 fine. In the filing of a report of injury, the employer must declare if they accept or deny the claim. As the employer may need time to investigate the injury, prior to declaring this status, they file a report with the status pending further investigation. Although workers' compensation law in Hawaii provides a strong presumption of compensability for work injury claims, the employer has the legal right to discovery. So during this discovery or this investigation time, the prepaid health care law and workers' compensation law, which was codified in 2018, provides that in the event of a controverted claim, the injured employee's private health care plan shall pay for or provide medical care services and supplies in accordance with the health care contract. The law further provides that if the claim is accepted or determined to be compensable, the employer shall reimburse the private health care plan. Although the statutes are enacted to ensure health care services for workers, we find that injured workers with cases under investigation may not be receiving the needed medical care, depending on the health care insurer. This issue is not new to the department. although this has not always been the case. In fact, a little over a decade ago, the injured worker received medical care from the outset, no matter the case status or the health care insurer. Today's practice of not all claimants receiving medical services from the outset, we've been informed, stems from contract language between the healthcare insurer and the physicians. The department has grave concerns when Hawaii's workers are not afforded the medical care, which is their legal right under the prepaid health care and worker compensation law. We are hopeful that today's briefing will help to bring some resolution to this matter. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you. And I've got a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So it seems like denied pending investigation is an appropriate designation for a workers' comp carrier to give. And it also seems like the denied acceptance is a separate designation from pending investigation.
Yes.
So something is either denied or accepted, and then another tag can be put on that says pending investigation. But that pending investigation tag does not affect the denied or accepted designation. Is that correct?
So the clarification on that was, this goes back to a form that was developed years ago. And so there was only two status checks. Is the liability denied? So you either say yes or no. And if it's denied, or if it's not accepted because you say that it's not denied, then there's a form, a space on the form that you provide further clarification. And that's where they would put it's pending further investigation. So it's not, that's why it's controverted, because their intent is maybe not to deny, but their intent may be, depending on the situation, if they're going to deny it. So it's not at the onset accepted, but they really don't want to say that it's denied yet. So that's where the pending further investigation came in.
Okay. So in your opinion, denied pending investigation should be considered
Just pending.
Should be considered a controverted claim
Yes.
under the statutes, and therefore the private health insurance companies should cover a denied pending investigation claim. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand that I feel like we're beating around the bush. I feel like the large healthcare company, HMSA, is kind of the anomaly in this state, in that they are treating denied pending investigation as not denied and are not covering their own members through their private health insurance company when they are denied pending investigation. Why has the state, if this is your position, why has the state not gone after HMSA for refusing to cover its members?
So the state has had many conversations with HMSA on this matter, and it's a legal issue because it's a contract exception. And so actually we've never received where in the contract that exception is. And so we still, up until last week, I think have further clarification on where that exception is. How the statute reads, and that's where the gray line comes in, where the statute reads that it's in accordance with the contract. And so if it's in accordance with their contract, their practices may be against the intent of the law, but their contract may be in accordance with acceptable practices.
But is that not their burden to prove to you folks that their contract is such that they don't have to follow this law?
Yes.
And you've asked for this information and they haven't gotten it to you?
It has not been clarified to us, yes.
Okay. You're not alone, me too. I've also asked for the area of the contract and have not been given the area of their contract that they're saying permits them to do this. But that is disturbing. I mean, I would encourage DCD to look further into this, because if HMSA really is violating the law and has been for a decade, it's a lot of injured workers that have been harmed by this.
Yes.
And I think that the state should have an action against HMSA for this.
So some of it is outside of DCD because it really falls under the Department of DCCA, Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. And so that's where, I'm not using that as an excuse, but that's where, it's not under our regulatory allowance to be able to look at the contracts that are signed between the healthcare and the physicians.
Okay.
And so we're kind of in the middle there, but we would like to help out, and I'm hoping for some clarification today.
So, have you ever reached out to DCCA?
We have.
And what has their response been?
We did not get clarity from DCCA as to any law that is being broken.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this time. I'm open here for questions if you have any.
Thank you.
later.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I'd like to hear from some providers next. Frank seems raring to go. Frank, are you there? Yeah, I also know he's
Yes,
at his
yes.
practice right
I'm
now and has
here.
patients. So I'd like to hear from Dr. Azuta first. Or maybe he's at home.
Well, thank you, Representative Matayoshi. From a medical standpoint, the denied pending investigation has been potentially catastrophic to patients because of, one, the delay in medical care, and two, the inability of the patient to get medical care even when they would choose to seek care under their private medical insurance. The importance of that is that in certain cases, injuries that are treated earlier have a better outcome. And also, of course, injuries that are treated earlier usually result in the employee getting back to work sooner. I think that has been the main problems from our standpoint in terms of treating injured workers, and hopefully that can be resolved. I think that I should add that denied pending investigation is not a common event that I see in my practice. In fact, it's few and far between, but can have significant impacts on the outcome, medical outcomes of these injured workers. The other thing that with the private insurers sometimes not accepting treatment of a denied pending investigation claim, the other thing I see is that some of my peers, sometimes when they find out that they hear the workers' compensation, where they refuse to treat the patient even though the insurer is willing to pay for that treatment. And so I think that the revision of the statute should clarify the language and make it clear to my peers that they do need to treat these injured workers when it's a denied pending investigation claim.
Okay, thank you, doctor. So you're saying that because these patients of yours who are denied pending investigation don't receive prompt medical coverage, their injuries could actually get worse and keep them out of the workforce for longer?
Yes, well, particularly if a patient is placed off, if I place a patient off from work and I can't get the care that they need, they very rarely go back to work again. And they're not getting treatment, so they're not going to go back to work. And there are certain types of injuries that if treated sooner rather than later will result in a better outcome for that patient in terms of returning to work, getting back their physical health.
Okay, and what, if you could just tell us your experiences with workers that are denied medical coverage like this. I mean, what's the effect on their family, on their ability to make mortgage payments and support their families?
Well, yeah, I mean, when they get denied pending investigation, then they're usually not compensated by the workers' compensation system because it's denied pending investigation. And then also when they if their employer has a temporary total disability insurance program, they also will not get paid by the TTD program because of the fact that it's potentially a workers' compensation claim. So they have no income. So the financial impact of that is as you can imagine, can be fairly devastating for an individual.
Understandably. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, I think that the ability for the injured employee to get treatment under their private medical, if it's a denied pending investigation claim, would be in a expeditious fashion, would be very important.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Are there any other medical or providers that would like to testify? Christy? You want? Was Dr. Lum on? Oh, yeah. Let's hear from Dr. Lum.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Again, I think it's along the same lines what Dr. Izuta had just mentioned about the delay in care can be quite catastrophic for some of these patients. It can be small to long with this denied pending investigation. Again, just access to care, getting the patient moving in the right direction, and getting them moving forward into getting them back to the workforce. But that delay in care can have a significant impact on their outcomes and how they return to the workforce. So again, echoing some of the same sentiments that Dr. Izuta had just mentioned. And I think the other part too is that the part he just alluded to, sometimes if they're pending investigation, that loss of income for that short period of time can mean how people can survive with their families and such too. So that is a big issue, getting them back working, or just clarifying that period of time to keep them sustainable for their family, and for their jobs.
Yeah, and how widespread is this for your patients? I mean, how impactful is it for your practice to have these denied pending investigation issues coming up?
It's not a widespread thing, but then when they do happen, they're very impactful for that individual person. I don't think it's a very widespread, but we have. It's not a very occurring type of event that happens, but when it does happen, the impact to that individual person, that patient, and to the healthcare provider is actually a fairly big impact upon them, because again, they're limiting what they can do, they're not getting paid, and also again, their injuries could progress more. So again, their return back to the workforce, returning back to their labor is impacted in such a way that the ripple effects become bigger and bigger the longer that delay occurs.
So give me a ballpark when you say not very much. Like 5%, 10%?
I'd say probably around 5%, or
Okay.
maybe a little bit less than 5%. But it's not a large amount. But again, it's the impact that it has on that person that I think we're talking about here mostly.
So maybe 1 in 20 patients.
Yeah, I would say somewhere around there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lum. Do you have anything else to add?
No. Thank you for the chance. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Do you have any other providers online? Is Dr. Miskovich online? I know he wanted to try to testify. Okay. Christy, why don't you folks go next? What was that? Oh. Did you folks want to say anything? Yeah. No, it's more of a conversation. Oh, hey, Fair.
Oh, you want to go?
Are you in a rush?
No, I just got here, so.
Okay, I'll give you time,
Let her
I'll give you time to
breathe.
catch your breath. Why don't you go first?
Okay.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Laurie Hamano. I'm a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And so what we are counselors who meet directly with injured workers. So we do have clients who come to us and tell us their case has been denied pending investigation. And our concern here is, one, they're not getting paid, they're not getting medical services, and we do meet with them to assist to see whether or not they have a feasible vocational rehabilitation case. We do so, and many times when that does happen, there's this lag of time between the time that client can receive temporary total disability benefits. Now, we have clients who are homeless based on this situation. So when you're talking about dire situations, you are talking about people who are unable to pay for their food, their apartments, they've lost their apartments, and therefore are somewhere, they're either, sleeping on people's couches or doing something similar. So I don't know what the percentages are, but I guess because we are the people who see the clientele, face to face, these are the people who are looking for the support and help, trying to find out answers, and they come to us. So the answer to that, I don't know what the percentages are, but we do see this more often than not.
I mean, that sounds incredibly impactful on the individual if they're, I mean, we're basically making them homeless because they can't receive prompt medical care.
Yes. And the concern for us is also whether or not they're able to get the medical through those who have a private medical system. I have a client right now who had an accident on site, and she had a active injury to a foot, and now with this secondary injury, which happened at the hospital, they're denying investigation. So she's trying to get her medical, which is HMSA, to come in. And there's this crickets where they're not able to tell her whether or not they're going to take the claim. We found another doctor for her, but she's still, they're informing him that they cannot get paid. So again, they're stuck. This has been a 4 or 5 month situation. So she's on TDI, not TTD. So she's on the, she's getting that rather than the regular temporary total disability benefits until it is determined whether it's okay or not.
And to be clear, this is someone who has been paying HMSA their insurance premiums.
Yes.
But and this is an injury that happened in the hospital that was not related to work. But
it is related to work. She works in that hospital. She works in the
hospital. Okay.
So she had an injury, got a secondary injury. Now they're pending denial of that, pending investigation, while the HMSA is trying to determine whether or not they're going to accept it. So there is this delay. Now it's like 4 or 5 months. So this is an actual case happening right now.
And how has that impacted her ability? I mean, has the injury worsened?
Yes.
During that time?
Yes.
Okay, so it's going to take even longer for that person to recover medically once, well, hopefully she gets covered by medical insurance.
Yes. She was back to work 6 hours a day
Okay.
with her previous injury. Now she's not working at all.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you. Fair? Would you like to? We said absolutely nothing. We're just waiting for you the whole time.
Okay, so I understand the hearing is on pending investigation?
The info briefing, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Or denied pending investigation, yeah.
okay, sorry.
And I just want to know, what I'm asking the providers to do is to just kind of give their stories about how this denied pending investigation designation has affected their patients.
Oh, okay, so for Dr. Miskovich, and actually from my experience, so I'm not, just to give you a little background.
I'll give your name and everything.
Okay, my name is Fairly Noone. I've been working for Dr. Miskovich since 2015. Prior to that, I was working in the legal field for about 25 years for claimants attorneys. So that's one of the reasons why Dr. Miskovich picked me up. So I've seen this issue my entire career, denied pending investigation. And in 2018, the legislature passed HRS 38621.1, which clearly states that in the event of a controverted claim, the injured employee's private health care plan shall pay or provide medical care services and supplies in accordance with the private health care contract. When the claim is accepted or determined to be compensable, the employer shall reimburse the private health care plan and the injured employee in the amounts as authorized by this chapter and the rules adopted by the director. That has not been followed. So what's been happening is you have this great delay in care and treatment. For medical doctors, we only have 1 year to submit a private billing in. So if it's denied pending an investigation and it goes from 2 months, 6 months, oh, now I need an IME, that's another 6 months. We've lost our window to bill private insurances. So, and then we get stuck in this circle, this vicious circle. Now, under private, if we had to get an MRI or a diagnostic, and I'm going to give HMSA as an example, they require a review of at least 6 weeks of physical therapy, pushing the patient back furthermore before we can get an MRI. Under workers' comp, we don't have that designation. But the denied pending investigation, just to give you a similar synopsis of one of my patients, what they're going through. She has a clear injury that was caught by surveillance camera. It is being denied pending investigation. She is out. The injury was in August. They denied formally on paper, so she's pending and waiting this whole time until September to get treatment. And the whole time she's in pain. She can't get medical care. We don't know what's going on with her other than that her body parts hurt because of this injury. She asked for a copy of the surveillance so that she can prove that she got hurt. They won't release it to her. Next thing, she comes to us. We try to get her covered under HMSA. HMSA won't pick it up. So now again, we're pending. We try to get a referral out for physical therapy or massage just to get her some pain relief without giving her a whole bunch of medication. And now she's living on this medication. Then they want to send her to an IME. The IME appointment is not until February of 24. So now you've got almost 8 to 9 months. She's not at work. She's not getting paid. And then for union reasons, she can't get TDI. So she's stuck in this limbo, and she become like your patient, couch surfing, because she cannot support herself financially. She's getting nothing. And she goes into the welfare system, and she loses her private medical. Then she has to pick up her private medical. And it's just this vicious circle. In the meantime, you have a clear and convincing injury that was caught on surveillance that could be easily disproved. And it's denied pending investigation. It's those types of things that just makes it very frustrating for doctors to be able to care for our patients. When we can't care for our patients, it's very difficult. If the legislature in its intent was to say, okay, the employer does have a right to investigate claims. However, this patient needs treatment. And if they're not gonna deny, they're gonna deny it, do their right, treat under private. And if compensable, pay back workers' comp. Workers' comp pays back to private. That's not happening. You got a denial on both sides, and the only loser is the patient and the doctor. Because the doctor, in his medical profession, cannot leave a patient in pain walking away knowing that they're in pain. So they treat and they eat the loss. And that's where we are at. And this is a common thread, and I've seen it more than 30 years now, and it's frustrating for us.
So in your opinion, this patient that, I mean, whether or not the investigation should have gone quicker, this patient would have been, it seems like, a lot better off if they were covered under their private insurance during the investigation.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, no, I mean, I agree with you on that the law is fairly clear that they should be covered, but we appreciate that your stories about, you know, real people getting affected by this, and another, unfortunately, another homelessness example.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
and it's common.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add?
Oh, I would be here all day.
Okay, let's move on. If you think of anything else, maybe we can come back to you.
Thank you.
Are there any other providers that would like to say anything? If not, I'm going to ask Malia from HEMIC to come up.
Good morning.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for Malia Leong testifying on behalf of Hawaii Insurers Council. Hawaii Insurers Council supports enforcement of the existing law that requires a health insurer to pay for an injury prior to a workers' compensation insurer accepting compensability. The law was enacted as part of the Prepaid Health Care Act in 1974, for which its purpose is to provide health care to a broad base of citizens regardless of how they were injured. It serves the injured worker in that the treatment can commence without delay, and it serves the employer while they determine whether the injury is a workplace one. If the injury is indeed a workplace injury, the employer reimburses the private health insurer. If it is not, the health insurer is already paying for treatment. This law has been in place since 1974 as part of the Prepaid Health Care Act, and then codified in the Workers' Compensation Law to clarify its application in 2018. However, some health insurers are not complying with the law by non-payment. As a result, some providers do not want to treat injured persons in fear of not getting paid by either health insurer or the employer. This could result in an injured person not receiving treatment while the employer rightfully pursues investigation of the claim. Since the injured person could have delayed treatment, legislation has been pursued year after year in attempts to force employers to pay for treatment prior to accepting compensability of the claim. These attempts to change the law have failed because they violate the employer's constitutional right to due process. However, the fundamental issue is that the health insurer is not paying when they are required to do so by law. We fully support measures to enforce this important law, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Yeah, thank you. Rose, did you have any questions?
Oh, I just want to ask.
Oh, for Malia, we can call someone else.
Okay.
after.
Oh no, not with her.
Okay.
I just want to ask, what's the difference between TDI and TTD?
Do you want to answer
I can
that?
answer that. So just for clarification purposes, sometimes terminology can be commingled or misinterpreted. So when a claim is in its denied pending state, that's why we do have temporary disability insurance. And so the TDI carrier will pay. And again, as with medical payment, if the prepaid health care pays and it's deemed to be a covered work injury, then the TDI carrier asserts their lien and we pay them back what they've paid. So they do have that income flow coming in, and I should say, if qualified, there are people depending on the qualifications for the TDI carrier, a length of employment, that type of issue, but the TDI is there for that purpose. TTD is temporary total disability, which is a benefit due under the workers' compensation law.
Okay. So one's under
Yeah,
worker comp.
I'm good.
One's not. Kind of.
Yeah, sort of.
So I think the biggest takeaway from your testimony just now is that there is a mechanism for private insurance companies to get their money back from the work comp carrier if the claim is later accepted. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so really, private insurance carriers will either, if they were covering it, or when they cover it, they either cover it because it's their job to cover it anyway, because it's not work comp, and that's what they should be doing.
Correct.
Or if it does end up being work comp, then they have a mechanism to actually recover all of those funds from the HEMICs and the other carriers of the world. So they're really not at any kind of true loss. Is that fair?
That's correct. I just would point out that I've been a claim adjuster in workers' compensation for almost 30 years. And so I've seen it from boots on the ground. And it was always that way, where if the private healthcare paid, we would reimburse. I will say it is a bit cumbersome in the sense that if the prepaid healthcare pays the medical provider, the provider has to submit, if it's now deemed a work comp claim, the provider has to submit the appropriate billings to the work comp carrier that are then audited per fee schedule, right? And then the medical provider reimburses the private health care that if they had paid benefits. So, again, going back to the denied pending, it is a small fraction, a small percentage of cases. For the most part, the carrier has 7 days to submit the WC1 form to the Department of Labor. We have up to 30 days if we have no information. And that's normally the common reason why we can't just accept some things, is we have a form and we have nothing, no medical reports and so on. So that's our job as a claim adjuster in the first 30 days to gather that. And in the event, I keep hearing reference to the presumption clause. That's why it's a very small percentage. As long as we get that information in the door, then there's no reason why it shouldn't be accepted and benefits paid under workers' comp. But if we have nothing, which it happens, right? We don't even know what we're accepting. So we need to have that window of opportunity.
I do want to push back a little on this small percentage. I mean, I understand it's a small percentage, maybe even 5% is maybe 1 in 20 claims for you folks. But if it's 1 in 20 chance of being homeless, that seems like a very serious issue. I mean, I don't want to minimize this issue by saying it's a small percentage. It seems very impactful on the overall workforce. I mean, if we were to lose 5% of our workforce, I think we would overall be in a pretty bad position statewide, and maybe that's contributing to our current lack of workers.
Yeah, so the only thing I would say to that, and again, there obviously throughout the state of Hawaii, whether it's a carrier or TPA, they might have different ways in terms of what we would call philosophy. But at the end of the day, within the first 30 days, right, I mean, we wouldn't even normally have a bill, right? We might be able to get a fax or an email, medical report to help us verify that information. But if at 30 days we have what we need, right, we're going to accept the claim, it's going to go on, and it's as it should, right, to get these people the payment that they need, right, and it would be retro back. So when I say a small fraction, I'm talking about, as everyone's going to have, a case where it might have gone south. I think those are the ones they're talking about that are the long tail, for whatever reason. But when we talk about initial claim, the claim is reported the first time, right? The initial pending investigation phase should not last longer than that, right? Between that 30 and if we need an extension of 60 days. But I would say the small fraction is less at that 30-day marker. So we're not talking about 6 months of being, without money. Like I said, the TDI would kick in initially. So. Okay,
and why isn't it possible for, again, the HEMICs of the world to accept pending investigation instead of denying pending investigation? Why is it not possible for you folks during your investigation to accept the claim and start covering it and then seek reimbursement the other way from private insurance?
I mean, for me, it's clear. We're following the law. I mean, that's what's in the law. It states that we have that right, to our due process right within that first 30 days, and I feel it should be enforced. I mean, every other law, that's statutory, is enforced, and so that would be my answer to that. That's what the law says. It would be ideal to have, the carriers, whether it's prepaid or the comp, if it was working the way that the law reads, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion.
Okay. And is this process prone to abuse? This denied pending investigation designation? I mean, do you see work comp carriers slapping it on everything just to sort of delay having to pay?
For me, I mean, there's always going to be bad actors in any industry you're in. You hope you don't have those. I would say that for somebody, or whether it's an insurance company or a TPA, an adjuster that was doing so, there's remedy for that, right? I mean, if they deny the claim within the first 30 days and there is absolutely no merit to deny that claim, then the director can, deny the request for extension. And then the carrier has to make a determination of full denial or acceptance of that claim.
Okay, so there's still oversight by the state after the first 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also oversight by the DCCA in terms of those bad actors, for those adjusters who have to be licensed in the state of Hawaii, if they were abusing it, that would be the remedy is through DCCA.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to have a conversation with them too. But thank you. Do you have anything to add?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Rose, did you have any other questions for anyone else? Sorry, I haven't been asking you.
I don't know who would answer this question, but if it took 1 year for the billing and it lapsed, is there a way you can proactively rebill?
On the private side?
Yes.
No, they only give you 1 year.
That's
Most
it.
contracts are 1 year for private insurance.
Okay.
Although the workers' comp is too, so just put that out.
Yeah.
No.
Workers' comp, you have 2 years to bill.
Okay.
So it's a loss then, huh?
Yes.
For the medical providers.
Yes.
So I did have one, and forgive me for not being too specific, but I kept hearing about this 6-month window between when the person stops working and when they lose their private insurance coverage completely. Can someone speak to that? Does anyone want to speak to that? I mean, you folks can too if you'd like. But what I'm worried about is that the denied pending investigation claim goes on. They're not covered under private insurance, and then after 6 months, they totally lose private insurance. So they've been paying all these private insurance premiums, and then after 6 months, they lose it and get absolutely nothing out of it. Can anyone speak to that?
Can I just make a clarification?
Yeah. Do you want to come up here to the mic so they can hear you too?
On the clarification for that, that's providing the patient pays into their COBRA.
Okay.
If they're not putting any hours in, then they're not going to have their medical coverage paid by their employer. So if they're not, don't have any they don't meet the minimum requirement for prepaid insurance by working their 20 hours 4 consecutive weeks, the employer has a right to cut them off and only offer COBRA. And that means the patient has to dish out more money to pay for their COBRA premiums. So
Okay.
if they're not working and they're not putting those hours in, it can get cut off the following month. So that's something to take in account for when you're looking at that.
But I know how expensive Cobra can be too. And Cobra lasts about 6 months. Is that it?
It's usually about the time of the premium, because they're assuming a person would return back to work or find another job within that time frame.
So someone gets hurt after 4 weeks that when they can't work, they have to either switch to Cobra and start paying even more, and then they're
Or
still
go
not
on-
getting covered.
Medicare, Medicaid.
Okay. And then after
Quest.
6 months, it's completely cut off, and they're just out of luck. Okay. Oh, hi, Dr. Miskovich.
Hi.
Sorry, yeah. Well, why don't we go to Dr. Miskovich? I know he's kind of between patients.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. I'd love to comment on that. And basically, first I'll mention that FAIR is correct. You know, with the Prepaid Health Insurance Act, you know, it's 20 hours. Then some employers will go for the 3-month period, 240 hours in a 3-month period, but some will cut it short at 1 month. And a lot of times then the COBRA paperwork is delayed. It's minimum going to be $600, $700, $800, even $1,000 a month that these people who are now usually not receiving a paycheck are going to be asked to pay for their health insurance. So that's pretty devastating to patients. COBRA, I'm pretty sure, can be extended up to 1 year by the law, in the federal law. But that's still, when you look at the out-of-pocket, I seldom see that happening. I'm going to go back to the beginning and comment what FAIR said. You know, again, we're I think guaranteed the largest provider of work comp on the windward side, one of probably the top 3 on the island. And so we have many years. I've been providing this service for my 30 years of care here, and I've been actively involved with working with everybody in this room on all sides. This is really important. You know, I want to highlight something specifically because FAIR stated that denied pending investigation is carrier-based. Now, you just heard one of our superstar groups in the state, which is HEMIC, and the comment was that, oh, it's not that common. That's because HEMIC does their job and they speed the process along. But we have very specific insurers, and unfortunately, I'm going to come right out and name 2 of them, which are repeated, and that's DOE and DHERD. And those are our state insurers that do this to our state employees, which is just unconscionable and FAIR, and some of the other providers can comment. But I would probably beckon to say that it's about 50%. And then if you look at some of the other mainland carriers, then you know they will do it also. But as it was stated, there are certain ones that do their job and are excellent with what they do, and they follow the law and don't let it happen. So I really wish there was a target to be able to look at the percentage of people who do the denied pending investigation, because, you know, 5%, yeah, that's about right. It should be about 5%. But if you're consistently running 50%, that's not right. Now, what does this do? We serve the people. And what happens with denied pending investigation is exactly as explained. Everything comes to a stop. We can't get their private to do any kind of care. We can't get the work comp to accept it. And this person's sitting in limbo. And we have a person sitting often in pain, in limbo, getting no care whatsoever, as they're then being sent all of these bills. And yes, they may get temporary disability. There's a big lag on that for them to start getting paid. So the whole process, this is 100% the patients that are bearing the brunt of denied pending investigation. I mean, we could talk about the providers getting hit with it, but this is just one of about 10 things that has made it difficult to keep medical providers involved. And, we are at a desperation right now when it comes to specialists. We have hardly any specialists that we can refer to because every year there just seems to be more and more attrition. And this is just one of those situations. So even if you get a person sometimes now that gets covered under their commercial, if there's even an inkling that workers' comp is behind it, the specialist won't even see it. So we need this just black and white so that we can have the door open to care for these people. We have shortages in physical therapy. We have shortages in every specialist that sees workers' comp. And then we probably have 10% of the state's total will even bother accepting it. So we need this process streamlined. And I try to be focused, but I'll take questions because I didn't want to relap over some of the things that FAIR did an excellent job at explaining.
So doctor, in your opinion, this denied pending investigation issue is hurting work comp treatment overall by kind of scaring medical providers out of wanting to even touch this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's another one of the factors, and it's a fairly major factor because you'll send someone over in this denied pending investigation frame where they're supposed to be covered by their private, but then the specialist will get stuck where the private insurance is like, oh no, we're not going to do this because it's pending investigation, and it just drags on forever. And so think about it. So I don't blame these people, right? So you're a specialist and you are booked out a month, and any appointment slot you open, you could fill with a private patient that doesn't have any work comp associated with it. What are you going to do about it? Because you're going to say, okay, just don't take it. And who's pushing that? The staff. Because on the backside, the work that has to be done to repeat and to repeat and to repeat the claims processes, one goes into the private, one goes into work comp asks for additional information, and then most of the time the work comp is going to have an attorney involved, then we get involved. They don't want to touch that. So their staff says to them, doc, don't take those patients because we can take private patients. That's what happens when you get a shortage, and it's happening across the board in every specialty: psychology, psychiatry, orthopedic, spine surgery, anything, GI, neurology, the ones we use a lot. It's really a hard thing. And unfortunately, and you guys hopefully all know me, I'm very blunt, I'm very straightforward. Some of the people that do accept, they're not our best providers in the state. And that's a shame because I like to send people to people I would send family members to, and it just keeps getting thinner and thinner.
Okay, thank you, doctor. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Any other medical providers on Zoom or in person? I think that's everybody. I just want to make sure. Allison, did you want to speak or? Okay. Oh, John Ching, are you online? He is? Okay.
Hi, Chair. Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, so Jonathan Ching with Kaiser Permanente. Thanks. This is a really robust discussion I've been listening on. Sorry I'm not able to be there in person today. I'm a little bit under the weather. But I just wanted to share from our perspective and, really noting that we are a little bit different because we are an integrated care delivery system. We're a provider and insurer. So from our end, we basically would continue to treat a member even if we received a denied pending investigation. Really, I mean, to say it is to treat that Kaiser member and bill the identified responsible payer, whether that's likely the workers' comp insurance carrier, and then we would continue to do so until the workers' comp insurance carrier advises us that the member's injury has been denied. And then, really, I think that post-advisement of that denial we would continue to treat our members. So, from our end, and I think it's kind of similar to some of the other previous testifiers, from our end, it's taking care of the patient, and then you deal with the billing on the back end. But I do note, we're a little bit different because, our physicians direct care for our members, right? And then on the back end, right, we're providing health insurance coverage to those Kaiser Permanente members. And so that's what essentially why I'm saying that billing gets sorted out on the back end, and there shouldn't be any gaps in care. The one caveat being that unless they're prevented from seeing us on the front end, but to my understanding and talking to our folks, that really never happens. So that's all I have to add to this conversation. Again, just noting, we're a little bit different because we're an integrated care delivery system. Thank you, Chair Mariyoshi, for the time, and I see Representative Tam and Representative Martinez in the room. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm here for any questions.
Thanks, appreciate it, John. All right, up next, Darlene from Island Insurance. Are you on the line? Darlene, if you can hear us, we can't hear or see you. No audio. Okay. Darlene, if you can hear us, maybe you could log off and log back on, and we'll just move on for now. I can see her in that corner there. Did she hear us, you think? Because she unmuted her. Was she muted before?
She only joined the audio. Oh, maybe we have audio?
Darlene, can you hear us? No. If you're speaking, we still can't hear you. I know sometimes the audio only goes one way.
We're not getting audio from her.
Okay, let's move on while she tries to sort out her technical issues. Is HMAA here? I know Kehao was supposed to be here. Yep.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I don't have too much to add to what John just said, other than we do comply with the statute. We do not outright deny the claims. So, really, for us, I think our biggest problem is getting the information that the case has been resolved by the work comp. But as far as claims processing on our end, if we're notified that it's a work comp situation or possible work comp situation, we're paying the claims. So.
Okay, so if, as a private healthcare insurance company in Hawaii, if you are notified that a claim is denied pending investigation, you would immediately take over coverage for your member. Is that correct?
Correct. Once it's confirmed that it is a work comp situation, our adjudicators do process the claims for payment.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Kale. Did you have anything else to add before we move on?
No.
Okay. Thank you. I know I invited UHA too. I'm not sure if they are here.
I want to add something to HMAA, which actually general health care.
Here, come up here, but let me make sure that UHA is UHA on the line. Is anyone on Zoom from UHA? Okay. If not, you can go ahead, Fair.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to point out, not to jump in on the private side, but there is a mechanism on the private side that triggers whether if it's a third-party liability claim or a workers' comp claim, and they send a notice to the patient asking if it is and who the representatives are so they could send the appropriate subrogation lien. So in other words, this is the second half to the HRS 38621.1, where if a notice is generated by the patient stating that, yes, this is workers' comp, or even if it's third party, like I'll give an example. HMSA has the Rawlings company that chases after the subrogation liens. So that company would chase after workers' comp to find out what the status is and to get repayment back. So on the private side, they have that mechanism. And I was reminded of that because my husband got a notice for an old injury of 30 years ago, and I had to mark no back history. You know, so it's,
Okay.
they have that there.
Joanne, did you want to speak to, I know a couple of people have mentioned kind of the process of whether it's difficult to figure out whether a claim is, or what the status of a claim is. I know you folks have been working on sort of a more online integrated system.
Thank you. Yes, it would be good to kind of inform everyone. We're trying to reach out to all the stakeholders. We've been in the process in the last 5 years to build our public portal. And so this last year, we have opened up our public portal to allow for online filings of these claims. And we use this year as kind of a transition year, but coming 2024 January, the carriers will be required to file all of their claims online. And so as a public portal user, you're able to then go in 24/7 and look at the status of the claim. And so it'll make things a lot easier than our heavy paper base that we had before. Things are digitized, and electronic filing now helps with the proficiency and efficiency of the claims. And so some of these questions that we have that I'm listening to will be resolved through access through our public portal.
Okay, is HMSA a part of your public portal? Have they signed up?
They have not, but we had a discussion even this morning as to how we can get them to access onto the portal.
Okay. Has Kaiser signed up?
Our providers have not signed up yet. It has been our carriers and our adjusters that have signed up.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so we'll be doing extra steps to reach out again to them.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got less than a month, and the holidays are coming up. So, good
Well,
luck.
it's mostly the adjusters and the carriers that file the claims, but it is very helpful for them to be able to go on and to be able to see the status of the claims.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. I think that might be it, except for HMSA. So why don't we hear from HMSA?
Sure, thank you, Chair Matayoshi, Representative Martinez. I'm Jennifer Diesman, and I'm a Senior Vice President at HMSA. I've been with the organization for 25 years now, and I've always had a role in doing regulatory and government work. And I say that only in that there's been a lot of conversation here about sort of historical statutes, historical regulations and rules, as well as whether or not we've been consulted or reached out to with regard to this issue. And I just want to say that until July, we were not aware that there was a concern. And I think it's important to note that because if we had been aware earlier, maybe we could have been part of the conversation. As I understand, there was a work group that was happening during the interim. I don't necessarily think we were invited to that work group. Happy to always participate and be at the table so that we can kind of identify what some of the concerns are earlier on.
Unfortunately, the work group was a work comp group, so it wasn't private insurance, but this came up during the group because so many work comp providers have had so much trouble with HMSA due to this issue. So that's when I met with you for the first time about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, but it's a little concerning that no progress has been made on this issue during our conversations.
Well, again, I think progress is being made. However, to your point about this coming up during those conversations, none of those work comp carriers have reached out to HMSA. DLIR has not reached out to HMSA. So in the course of this being a major issue, no one has reached out to HMSA on this. So we went back and discussed with our attorneys, our TPL department, the Rawlings group, our subject matter experts who have been working on work comp issues for, again, 20 years. And they were unaware that this was an outstanding issue out in the community, either from the medical community, physicians, or the work comp carriers. So that doesn't mean it isn't an issue. I'm just saying, you know, from HMSA's perspective, we of course want to help our members, and we want to help if they are an HMSA member. So I think it's important to note that nothing has changed in our process. We continue, from our perspective, to comply with the statute as well as comply with the HAR, and also disagree. I know you're trying. We disagree that in some ways there's nothing in, well, not in some ways, in no way is there anything in the statute or the HAR that references pending investigation, right? So the work comp carrier has 60 days, and if the work comp carrier made the determination within the 60 days and didn't need an extension in any way for the controverted claim, then we would have a situation where the injured employee would get those benefits sooner and quicker. So I think there's a lot of information swirling around here today, some of it accurate, some of it inaccurate. But I think everyone's here because they want to do the right thing. Everyone wants to help the injured employee, and HMSA certainly wants to help our members in this situation. I think the rub is that there are some things that have been created over time that are almost like a term of art as opposed to what's in statute or what's in HAR. And so as I understand it, the denied pending investigation phrase only applies to state employees, not to private sector employees. And also the letter from DLIR that is received actually directs that employee back to the state, not to their health plan. So there's a lot of sort of like, it's complicated and there seems to be a lot of sort of misinformation. But I just want the committee to know for certain that HMSA complies with the statute today. So if the law changes, we will comply with the change in law, but we unequivocally, in our opinion, comply with the statute today.
Okay, I think we're going to disagree about that,
Totally.
and I will talk to DCCA about that. I think it's a little unfair for you to say you had no notice prior to me bringing it up. I mean, I am certainly raising it as an issue, but HMSA has been denying medical coverage to its members for over a decade when they are stuck in this situation. They are affirmatively denying them coverage. So to say that you folks had no notice and you had no idea what was going on, I guess it's one of two things. You either aren't paying attention to the denials, which I think would be bad, or, well, I guess that's the only option, and that's a little disturbing. I don't think it's beholden upon the legislature to bring this up to you at any point to say, no, you should be covering your members. I mean, this is a pretty big deal, as you've heard from everyone else. This is something that's affecting your paying members that you're affirmatively denying them healthcare coverage for. So to say that you have no notice and this is kind of the first time you're hearing of it, I mean, are you not talking to any of the doctors or provide? I mean, that kind of blew my mind just then.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't think that's the intention, obviously. But again, I think my point is there's a process in place, right? We comply with a process. HMSA has a process. We work with the work comp carriers on the back end primarily. And as was mentioned, we contract that out to some degree. And then we have an internal team that is, dedicated to what we call third-party liability, right? So there is a very complicated, lengthy claims adjudication process related to all third-party cases. So from our perspective, we're not necessarily, From our perspective, we're not denying care. What we are doing is following the process that's laid out in terms of who is liable, compensable for that claim.
But your own process changed. I mean, this has been in place since 1974. 10 years ago, well, if we go back 10 or 12 years, HMSA was doing exactly the same thing as every other insurer in the state. 10 years ago, you folks were covering denied pending investigation claims. It was a fairly recent change in the grand scheme of things where you folks changed your internal process to start denying healthcare coverage to people who were denied pending investigation instead of covering it. So nothing changed in the law. So how can you be saying right now that you're following the law when the law hasn't changed, but you folks have changed?
So again, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've consulted with the internal stakeholders who manage this area. I've consulted with our legal team who manages this area. We have made no changes relative to this process that anyone is aware of. So if we were doing something 10 years ago that changed, I can honestly tell you here today that that is not happening from our perspective. So I think maybe what is happening is, again, there's a disconnect, it seems to me, in that perhaps the original process on the front end isn't working as it was originally intended to work, or isn't working as quickly as it should work, right? I mean, HMSA has a history in work comp in that we actually created a work comp carrier in the early 1990s because there were no work comp carriers willing to write policies for employers. So we wrote them for our small employer population. We got out of that market at some point when, primarily when HEMIC, then Lieutenant Governor Mazie Hirono helped to craft the legislation for HEMIC, and then HEMIC eventually became sort of the, I guess, this quasi-state entity, if you will, for workers' comp insurance. HMSA exited that market, right? So we've sort of been in a process for many, many years. Nothing has changed relative to this particular issue that you're bringing up, except again, I think it's unfair to say that this is sort of a universal process or a universal issue in that it's a term of art that has been created over time, not in statute and not in rules.
No,
I understand that
you've heard DCD come up here and say that accepting and denying is separate and apart from denied pending investigation. So even if those are two separate things, then you're either denied or accepted, and then you can also put on denied or pending investigation. Wouldn't you agree that denied and accepting is in the statute and in the rules? It says controverted claim. That's what that word means, right?
Well, my understanding is what a controverted claim means is that it's not been accepted or denied, period. There is no pending investigation. So there
Right.
is no language in the statute
That's
for
a
that.
separate designation, though, that you're hearing the state tell you right now that it's either accepted or denied, and then it can be, something else can be tacked on, but that doesn't affect it being accepted or denied. They're in two separate buckets here.
Right, and our position would be that the way the statute reads is that's not possible.
Okay, so you're disagreeing with DCD's.
I am. And again, if you read the letter that is received, the requirement goes back on the employer. The requirement does not go to the health plan. They ask you to continue to send those bills and invoices for medical services back to the employer, not to the health plan. So the statute doesn't require it, the rules don't require it, and the actual language in DCD's own letter actually requires it to go back to the employer.
In a second, I'll ask DCD to weigh in on this, but I mean, could we at least agree that every other private health insurance company in Hawaii seems to be interpreting this different than you?
My understanding in reaching out to two of them is that they made a change based on information that they were provided by law firms to do so.
Okay, so the other attorneys for other healthcare companies told them, no, if you don't provide coverage when it's denied pending investigation, you are violating the law. That's your understanding?
My understanding is there were lawsuits around it.
Okay, so people have already been sued about this, and other people's legal counsel have told them you should really be covering these people who are being denied pending investigation. From calling around, that's your impression?
That's my impression.
Okay, but your own attorneys are disagreeing with this and saying that you can still not provide healthcare coverage to your members if they're denied pending investigation.
We believe we are complying with the statute.
Okay.
And like I said, if the statute changes and we are required to do something else, we will do something else. But from our perspective, at this point in time, we are complying with the statute. Again, I do think, right, everyone here is trying to do the right thing. And so I do think, trying to get at some of the other issues that are coming up today would be really helpful as well, because I think it sounds like that this is a very small number of cases. And from our own understanding of HMSA's claims, when these are quote unquote denied pending investigation, 60% of them are actually ultimately paid by the work comp carrier. So I think maybe getting at some of the other issues around timeliness, around information. I think it's amazing that DLIR will be having this portal in place, and that would hopefully streamline the process. As I mentioned, I think in another conversation, HMSA was a stakeholder that participated with the consultant that was working on this about 3 to 4 years ago. We never heard anything back from the consultant. We never unfortunately heard anything back from DLIR. So unfortunately, until today, or a couple of days ago when I reached out to DLIR, we didn't know about it. So I think it'll be great for the future because it'll help streamline the process.
I mean, it's great that other changes are being made, but certainly
Totally.
this is a change that could be extremely impactful. I mean, that's like saying a small number of people are homeless, and that's why homelessness doesn't matter. I mean, it does. This is a small number of claims, but it's so impactful for
Yeah.
those people. And half of them are your members. I mean, you have a 50% market share in this. This is hugely impactful for the state. And you've heard the stories of people being impacted by this. I'm very concerned that this is not only impacting the state and our workforce under this labor committee's purview, but also just impacting people.
Yeah,
And
sure.
people who are paying premiums to HMSA for medical coverage that they are not getting when all the other insurance companies here are saying, yes, you know what, we are going to be covering them. And,
Yeah,
and
well-
someone keeps waving to me in the back. Did you have something
Well-
to say, or I'm not too sure what's going on here. Okay, if you'd like to say something, we can call you, but right now it's not helping. You can continue.
Sorry, what I was just going to say is, I think, again, for the overwhelming majority of all of the work comp cases, right, it's the employer who pays, right? The employer is paying both for the health plan coverage through Prepaid Healthcare Act, and it's the employer who's paying for the work comp coverage through whatever carrier they use, like HEMIC, for example, right? So it's actually
Which is part of the employee's compensation, though.
Absolutely, 100%. So my point is, the employer is sort of caught in the middle, right, and making the determination, was this injury actually at work? And if yes, I mean, from my perspective, if I'm trying to help that employee, I think innocent until proven guilty applies, right? The person says they were hurt at work, therefore I, as the employer, want to provide them with work comp coverage. I, as the work comp carrier, want to help provide them with the necessary services that they need, both medical and otherwise. And then if for whatever reason it is determined not to be a work injury, which is a much smaller percentage of those cases are determined not to be an injury at work, then that is when Prepaid Healthcare Act kicks into effect for that same employer. So that same employer is paying work comp insurance and they're paying health plan insurance, right? So they have a vested interest in wanting to ensure that the work comp carrier also complies and actually pays out when appropriate, as well as the health plan. So again, I just think there's maybe some bigger issues to be talking about here. Not to say that, to your point, any injured worker who ends up being injured or displaced or not having their medical benefits covered as a result of this, it's important. Of course, it's important to that individual. But from a process standpoint, when we're talking about thousands and thousands of claims per year, I think improving the process so that it's better for everyone, for the workers who are injured at work, seems more relevant to me.
This is not really what we're talking about here. And I agree with you. Other changes can be made. I think everyone can agree on that. But the one change that I think HMSA could make that could impact many, many workers right now, and probably should have been made 10 years ago, is just covering your members who are denied pending investigation. And it sounds like HMSA is unwilling to do that, perhaps on legal advice. Honestly, even if you believe you don't have a legal obligation to do it, because you will get compensated from the work comp carrier if it's truly accepted, I don't see any reason for HMSA to morally deny its members coverage when they're denied pending investigation and the investigation's pending. So, I mean, HMSA is a large company with a lot of money, and you guys are paying your executives a lot of money. I mean, that came out with fireworks this year in the Star Advertiser. If you're saying that it's a money issue, that rings hollow to me.
And I'm not sure I ever did say that. What I
Not
did say,
before.
what I did say was that there's a process in place and there are statutes and there are rules and we are complying with them. I am happy to have the conversation about changing the statute so that you change the language so that this term of art that doesn't exist anywhere today.
You keep calling it a term of art, but it's not a term of art. Approved and denied are perhaps
But-
term of arts that
but-
are in there.
But denied pending investigation
They're
isn't.
two separate things, though. I mean, you just heard the state say that. I don't.
I understand. So we can change, if we change the admin rules to address that, I think that
It
would
says
be.
controverted
that
claim.
makes-
It's
Well,
already in there.
controverted means denied or accepted,
Right, and that's exactly what's happening. They're denying or accepting.
but
and
not
then
these, right?
they're
But not
no,
these.
no, these two. Pending investigation is a separate tag. I don't understand how
It's not
it
denied
doesn't
or
affect-
accepted.
Pending investigation does not affect the accepted or denied designation at all. They're accepted or denied, and then it's another note that it's pending investigation, so it may change pending the investigation.
I think
but
we'll-
it's. I mean, I don't understand. There's no pending investigation designation. I mean, they could say if it was not accepted or denied, and they just gave it a pending investigation designation, then I could see your point. But it literally says denied.
So
I don't. There's no gray area there.
So there's-
and I will. I mean, I am going to be putting forth a bill because I'm so pissed about this issue, and the honestly, what seems to me to be a purposeful misinterpretation of this that is hurting Hawaii's workers. So I will be putting forth a bill, and it will have penalties for companies that don't comply with this. But it is inconceivable to me, and honestly strikes me as rather immoral, for a company to be denying its own members healthcare coverage when the denial is right there. I mean, you're arguing that there's a gray area when no one else in the state, including your fellow healthcare companies, are saying there's a gray area. And you've said that their own attorneys have looked at it and they said that there's no gray area. Yet you folks are holding on to this, and you've heard it's making people homeless. It's hurting our working families here. I don't understand how HMSA can be putting these commercials on TV about how much they care about their members, about how much they care about the health of Hawaii when this is going on. It offends me, quite frankly. But I do want to hear from DCD. Sorry, I meant to call you up earlier, but if you could come up and speak, I'd appreciate it. And we'll come back to you folks.
Well, actually, I'm kind of lost at words over that, because I have if I had grave concerns before, I even have more grave concerns. The Hawaii's Workers' Compensation Law was enacted in 1915 to provide wage loss compensation and medical care for Hawaii's injured employees. When the law was enacted, and in 1974, when the health care law was enacted, it really did not involve it didn't cover if there was a concern of payment of bill, because that was just what was supposed to happen. If they got injured, they were going to receive medical care. And there is two types of statuses. It's accepted or it's denied. Now, as an employer for Hawaii, you can deny a claim, but you may decide that you need to have further time, need more time to understand if you can accept it. And that's where the controverted claim comes in, that term. So in 2018, because this became very evident to the department that this was a major concern for Hawaii's injured workers, there was involvement with legislation under Act 107 in 2018. And I know that all the healthcare providers were involved with testifying in 2018. So it's concerning to me that HMSA would say that they're not involved. I'm sorry that they didn't feel that they were involved, but I think if I go back, I will see that there's testimony on those bills. The main point that the department wants to make is that injured workers are mandated, or employers are mandated to ensure that Hawaii's workers receive medical care. And the prepaid health care law is very specific as to employees are to receive that medical care. It is very concerning that we have injured workers that are not receiving not only timely medical care, but medical care from the outset. If you look up the word outset in the law, it's there several times. And that's because the intent of the law is that injured worker is to receive medical care without a waiting period, without having to have a provider or an employer decide if they're injured or not. That's why the healthcare law, the Prepaid Healthcare Act, is enacted. But I'll go back to in 2018, because we knew that this was a concern, and we started hearing more and more that injured workers were not receiving care. That's why that legislation came forward. It was reiterated in the work comp law. It was codified into the work comp law. It didn't change the language from 1974. It was the exact same language that was put in to re-emphasize that the injured workers in Hawaii are to receive medical care. No matter the circumstance, they are to receive medical care. So the department is very concerned. We have not gotten the answers that we needed over the years. That doesn't mean that we did not try. But again, I appreciate the involvement in today's briefing, because this can't continue. This needs to change, and we need to be able to provide health care to all workers in Hawaii, no matter if they're on temporary disability or workers' compensation.
I agree. And if you could comment on the change, I think it was when I was talking to you that you mentioned that HMSA had been complying with this up till about a decade or maybe 10 to 15 years ago.
When we go back, it looks like it's between 12 or 15 years that it was a bookkeeping issue. Because when we didn't get any answers that we needed, we went to the physicians and we said, when did this change? And some of them told us about 12 years ago. Some of us told us it was about 15 years ago. And what was happening, it's a bookkeeping issue, so the back end. So HMSA would provide or reimburse the physicians, but when it was told that it was a work comp case, then the physician needed to reimburse HMSA, because work comp is paid Medicare plus 10%. So it's a lower cost, a reimbursement cost that the physicians receive for providing service for an injured worker. And so because of that, as we hear from Dr. Miskovich, some of the doctors did say that they didn't want to service work comp patients because they get paid less, but because they were not getting paid also. Because if they didn't reimburse the costs, then it was not clawed back from them, then they weren't getting their full payment the next time. But we had said at that point that it should not be the business of the injured worker to worry about any of that. The injured worker needs to heal themselves. They shouldn't be worrying about this background issue. They need to heal themselves so they can get back to work. That's what the work comp law protects, is our employees, so that they can get the medical and the financial background. Department of Labor looks at us as our laws are the safety net for the economy of Hawaii. So if you're injured, on or off the job, there are benefits. If you're unemployed, there are benefits. We are the safety net to make sure that our economy continues. But when we have a situation like this, it causes a lot of angst, and as you hear, even more than that, it's significant, it's catastrophic, because people do become homeless. Or they're in so much pain that they have to go on medications. And that changes their whole their lives, their whole life. Not only their lives, but those of their family and those that care for them. I'm passionate about this because I know that what the laws, the intent of the laws are for. And so If there was a miscommunication, a misinterpretation, whatever it is, we need to make it right moving forward.
And unfortunately, I feel like we did in 2018
We
as a
did.
legislature, and we did in, I think it was pretty clear in 1974 too, and I didn't even realize it goes back to the early 1900s.
1915 work comp
So-
law for that purpose, to ensure that Hawaii's injured workers are cared for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Miskovich, did you want to comment?
Yes, I would like to make a general comment about, just to inform the committee about something that really needs to be brought up in relationship to HMSA.
Is this topical to the denied pending investigation matter? I just don't want to get too off track.
Very much so.
Okay.
Because right now, the majority of the providers in the state of Hawaii that are the primary care providers, we are paid by HMSA as a per member per month, and we are not paid fee for service. So it doesn't matter if the patient sees us, we get a flat rate per month. So from our perspective, the HMSA patient and the ability to quote unquote bill, it's a non-factor because we care for them for whatever they have, and it doesn't really matter. Where this is a problem is what I alluded to, is in the denied pending investigation, the specialists are still fee for service, the physical therapists are fee for service, as are the MRIs and those types of things. So that's why in my comments, I alluded to the fact that it was the specialists who were the biggest hit. But from our perspective, I just want to make sure everybody understands that there is a new world out there when it comes to working with HMSA as a primary care provider, that it doesn't matter. We could see the patient for whatever it is. Eventually they'll drop off and you don't, maybe get the fee for the per member per month. But do you have any questions about that? That's a very important point, that this is a specialty referral imaging therapy kind of specific problem that we'll see with HMSA.
I think we're going to need to talk about this another time, Doctor.
Okay,
I'm not
sure.
sure I see the connection to the denied pending investigation portion, but if it's a concern, we can discuss it another time.
Okay, sure, no problem, sorry.
Okay, hold on. I'd like to talk to HMSA first. Again, having heard DCD, it does seem like about 12 or 15 years ago something changed. And that's within the time frame of, that's well after 1974, that's well after the early 1900s.
Sure.
So nothing changed in the law because 2018 was the clarification, which was about 5 years ago. So if nothing changed in the law, it was literally just HMSA's interpretation. You keep saying that you're following the law, but it seems like you have followed two different paths in the law within this time period. So I'd like to hear your comments on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to go back again, Chair, and check. As I mentioned a couple of times, nothing has changed in our process that we are aware of. But again, I'm happy to go back and check. We did not participate or testify in 2018, so that's not entirely accurate either. But I do think, like I mentioned earlier, everyone's intentions here are good, and we want to ensure that our members have the medical services that they need. So we will go back, we will have an internal conversation about this to see if there is a way for us to reinterpret the language and or come back to you with some clarifications that might be good in statute or in rules that would make us feel like we were taking the path that is most appropriate. Because again, the denied pending investigation is only for state workers. That's actually not a HEMIC language or anybody else's language
I
for
don't think that's
private
true.
sector workers. It's only denied, is my understanding, not
So wait, are you
pended,
saying
denied,
that,
or
are you
accepted.
saying that you guys don't have a denied pending investigation designation that comes to you folks? It's either accepted or denied?
Only for state workers.
So if denied pending investigation is only for state workers, then every other claim coming to you should be accepted or denied.
Denied,
right?
accepted, or pended. So not denied
So
pending
you're saying
investigation.
the only pending investigation claims you're getting are from state workers.
Denied pending investigation. So again,
I
that's why
don't-
that term
I don't
of
think
art
that's
is
true.
interesting
I mean, I
to
think that's
us.
categorically wrong. I mean, I think that's demonstrably false.
We can maybe ask
I mean,
Hemic,
I see-
Hemic on
I
the
see
private
DCD
side.
I see Joanne shaking her head, or I see everyone in the audience shaking their head about that. I also have information that both Speaker Psyche and Senator Keith Algaron talked to HMSA a number of years ago about this very issue. So to say that you only had 6 months' notice when talking to me, I think is also false. I mean, maybe you didn't testify in 2018, although that's sort of on HMSA and not on anyone else to not have testified. But even if you didn't, this issue has been pending for a number of years. You had notice from the Speaker of the House, from a state senator. I mean, you had notice from me 6 months ago, and we still don't have any resolution right now. So I'm not sure more talking is going to help, because you've heard from everyone. You've heard from the state. You've heard from other insurance providers. You've heard from medical providers who have told you the incredible hardship that you're putting your members through by changing your mind 12 to 15 years ago on this topic. But none of that seems to be affecting HMSA's stance on this. If your stance is truly not going to change after hearing all of this, then I'm not sure what will, except for a fairly heavy-handed piece of legislation. And I was hoping, honestly, not to have to go that route, because I personally think the law is very clear. And it seems like everyone else is interpreting the law very clearly. So it's hard to make something that's clear even clearer, but if I do, I'm going to give it teeth.
Sure.
And I don't think you're going to like those teeth.
No, I appreciate your position, Chair. I do. And again, I think everyone's intentions are in the right place. And so we will go back and we will take another look at our own interpretation, as well as discuss with whatever stakeholders we need to in order to make a determination. But we believe we're complying with the current statutes. That's not to say that, what's that expression, put 5 lawyers in a room and you get 10 answers. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm married to one, so I feel like I have some credibility in that regard.
And I am one, yeah.
So, I mean, there's obviously interpretation, right? I think to hear DCD say that this is the intent of the statute is really important. And I think that what we can do is kind of go back and do some analysis on the
I don't think that's what DCD
preamble.
said. I mean, I think what DCD said was very clearly that there's accepting and denying, period. That's what DCD said.
But there isn't just accepting and denying, period, because there's that denied pending investigation.
No. I feel like we're having two separate conversations here, which is odd, because I'm not used to that, because I'm usually very direct. DCD is telling you that there's accepting and denying, and that pending investigation is a separate tag that does not affect accepting and denying. So I want to be very clear on that DCD's position is in opposite to yours. It's not the same as yours. And you keep bringing up DCD saying, well, they're kind of saying something else. I want to be very clear that that is not what DCD is saying, and that is not the determination of every other private healthcare company operating in the state of Hawaii, except for HMSA. That is the groundwork from which we are building this conversation, I think.
I appreciate that. But again, the actual DLIR letters that go out give the responsibility back to the work comp carrier, not to the health plan. So I understand that there's a lot of misinterpretation happening here, and you're right. I feel like we're having circles.
Do you have a letter with you?
I do have a letter with me.
Could you provide me a copy with it?
Sure.
And then, Joanne, what is this letter? Do you have any idea of what's going on here? She's saying that DLIR is providing it, which is you folks. Or do you need to see the letter first? maybe this could clarify for you.
Couple of things before I get to that. I want to make it clear that denied pending investigation is not only for state employees. It is for all employees. I have denied pending investigation from all carriers. It's the time that they need, additional time, because I'm going to reiterate that there's 7 days that they have to file. So it is in that letter, that's what we call our denied pending. When you have when you haven't accepted it, you've denied the claim, but you're saying you need further investigation. You need further additional time. That letter does say that it hasn't been determined. And it hasn't been determined, and that's why it's called controverted, because it is denied in the system. Controverted is you intend to deny.
Yep.
And so the intent to deny is you haven't made that decision yet if you are actually going to 100% deny it. You need more information. And so we can, to clarify, we can change that letter so that it is clearer that there are two statuses. But if you look even on our portal, how the portal was designed, the portal only gives you two answers. It's either accepted or it's denied. So there really is one not deferred pending investigation for only state workers. It's for all workers. That the employer has the opportunity to say, the carrier, the adjuster has the opportunity to say that they need more time. But then that letter itself may lead to some confusion, but I think if we go back, and maybe I will correct myself, but I was pretty certain before I came today that I looked at, I think it was, I won't even say what bill it was, the number. But on the 2018 for Act 107, HMSA was involved. If they testified or not, Jennifer, I'll take that back. But I do know that they were involved in all the pre-meetings. Okay. And so that is something that it is clear. We have, as a department, reached out to HMSA. I haven't on my own. I have done it with the directors, and I can tell you which directors have reached out, and it was our previous director, Linda Tue Dec, and she reached out to DCCA because she was an insurance commissioner before. So she was very familiar with the DCCA laws and understanding on what needs to be provided. And so it is a law. And however we want to slice this today, the law is very clear that an injured worker should receive medical care from the outset.
Okay, thank you for volunteering to fix this letter. Again, I don't think it is ambiguous enough to.
It's not, but if we
controvert
can
the
provide
approved
any
denied.
clarity, yes.
Yeah, I'm also noticing on here, it says, I mean, I see they highlighted pending investigation, but it says above it, if liability denied, why? So this literally shows you that it has to be denied.
It's denied.
Considered denied in order for this pending investigation tag to mean anything.
To continue, yes.
So I think this form, the WC1, is very clear that if liability denied, you can't get to pending investigation unless the claim is denied. That's what
yes.
that means.
Yes.
So that to me is very clear too.
And so there, again, I'll just reiterate, two boxes that you check. On the manual form, it's either accepted or denied, or liability accepted, yes or no, or on our portal. It's very clear, only two statuses.
Okay, thank you. I would like HMSA to respond. Go ahead.
I am so sorry. Can I get that back?
Of course.
It's not redacted entirely. Happy to provide it redacted. Sorry.
And my memory is bad, so I don't even remember their name. No HIPAA violation.
I didn't see it originally, sorry. Okay, so here's what I think. I think we were not aware that this issue was as significant as it is. And I am telling you that today. Hearing now from DLIR and hearing from you today and hearing from the physicians and the PT providers, we will go back and we will try to address this and clarify it, okay? It was not the intention to circumvent anything. It was obviously a difference in legal opinions in terms of what our responsibilities, liabilities, and processes were intended to do and to execute on. So we will take it back and we'll kind of look this through. And I mean, to Joanne's point, that is true. We met with Linda Tue Dec multiple times about work comp issues in the past. This specific issue was not brought up to us that I am aware of. And again, I have been doing this a very long time.
Okay.
But we will take it back now that I understand sort of like what is swirling and what the differences of opinion are in a more understandable way. We'll take it back and try to think about what is necessary for us to change our policy.
I hope you can also take back the impact on the members that you've heard here today. I mean, it really does, it really can ruin a family to have this happen. And
Of
that
course.
to me is the true, I honestly couldn't care less what the two big insurance companies are doing to transfer money
Agreed.
between each other, or how long it takes, or how much paperwork. If you
Agreed.
folks want to streamline that, sure. If you don't feel like it, that's fine too. It's the worker that's getting caught in the middle that should not have to worry about this.
Absolutely.
And they are the primary burden holder of this interpretation.
Absolutely. We could not agree with you more. We absolutely do not want to have our member in the middle of this conversation.
Okay, you have until the third Wednesday in January, which is our opening day, to try to get me an answer.
Sure.
I probably am going to be introducing this bill, but if you change your mind, I may reconsider.
Sure, happy to do that. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
the time.
I don't want to take up too much more time. Does anyone else have anything they want to say before we? Yes, sir. Come up. Please state your name.
Well, I'm not good at public speaking, but as far as the issue is concerned, I am an injured worker. I was denied pending investigation. 2018, October 22nd. HMSA had been providing me medical care when the insurance company didn't provide. So what I'm saying is, what you accuse HMSA of, they actually provided me the care, not the workers' compensation insurance company.
While you were denied pending investigation, or because you were
While
denied?
I was denied pending.
Are you sure it was? Because if you were just denied, then they would provide you care, and I think that's not a. I think there's no.
Yeah, but that's what you
gray area
said they
there.
weren't doing.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you were really denied pending it, because they are literally standing here telling me that they do not provide medical care if it's
Right.
denied pending
That's what-
investigation.
that's
so
what-
if you manage to slip through, that's great. I'm not.
But I'm a,
that's
I'm a
that's
recipient
amazing.
of their care
Okay.
when I was denied pending investigation.
Okay. You are very lucky then, because they are standing here telling me right now and everyone else that they normally do not do that.
Okay,
So great for you. I think that you should be the example of what could be for everyone.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming here and telling me that, and how impactful that was for your life, that they did provide you coverage when you were denied pending investigation. I would like everyone to be like you.
So, and the the problem I received was I have this. I'm not good at asking, but okay. How do you define denied pending investigation? Well, what happened to me, when they sent me the letter, denied pending investigation, did the insurance company go to the job site and investigate? No. What they did was they launched an all-out investigation. They hired a law firm to subpoena 1,707 pages of a past medical record dating back to 1990. That's investigation? When they didn't even go to the job site and ask questions? My boss was there when I got hurt. He saw me get hurt. The workers saw me get hurt.
So
And
I
yet
don't want to get too off topic here because
Yeah.
I think you have legitimate concerns on how an investigation is
Correct.
is done. This is simply on the denied pending investigation designation
Right.
that's being given. And really, it's just denied or accepted, and then the pending investigation is sort of a tacked on piece.
So it's just-
if you'd like to discuss about investigations or about other things like that, then it's not really topical, and I do
No,
want
but
to.
that's why I needed to know what the definition was of denied pending investigation, because
Yeah, it just means it's denied.
it's not
and
clear
then
to
they're going
me.
to investigate it further.
yeah, and that's exactly the method of investigation makes a difference. What they're investigating.
Yeah, no, and I agree. It's just a topic for another day. But thank you for coming up and sharing it. I really do appreciate
So can
how
I leave
impactful
with
that
you-
was for you. Sure,
leave with
you
you
can leave. You
something?
can leave however much information you'd like. But I really do appreciate you sharing, and you got very emotional there, and I appreciate that because it shows you. I think it shows everyone how much that medical care at that point in your life really helped you while you were denied pending investigation. It seemed to make a huge difference in your life, and thank you for crediting HMSA for that. But I'm hoping that you can be the example of everyone going forward. So thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate it. This is going to conclude the informational briefing.